Just
Okay.
that should do something. Yeah.
Anyway, you're actually the first artist we will be interviewing.
Oh my god.
That's why everything was so slow, so discombobulated.
Oh my god.
We're trying to like figure everything out and stuff, right?
Yeah.
No rush.
So like since you're the first artist we're interviewing, just want to ask like, tell us about the show, like by popular demand.
Yeah.
Like tell us, because I feel like neither of us, I feel like only a lot of music school kids know that, but then like, because we are not from a music school and whatever. Sorry, that was such a bad sentence. But you get what I mean? Like, so just tell us a bit about that. Yeah.
So by popular demand is essentially the third year. It's kind of like a showcase that Rod Davies, our course convener, put together. And it's essentially a TV series that gets recorded with an outsourced like media help, and is mixed and mastered by the Monash like in-house peeps, Hayden Buxton, shout out. And it's all original compositions and performances from third-year students. So there's, I think, 4 or 5 episodes, and then it should air sometime this year. I actually don't have all of the details.
It's March 2nd, I believe.
Oh my God, there you go, March 2nd.
Send me the deets.
March 2nd.
Yeah.
I probably should know that. So it's just a bunch of really amazing musicians performing their original pieces in different settings throughout our campus, like a little bit on campus. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about what you performed and what inspired that?
Yeah, sure. So I performed an original song called See It All, and it was a piece that I co-produced with a friend called Jack Champion, and I wrote all the stuff myself. I basically took this project that I had to him and was like, I have the body of work, I want to flesh it out. And then he helped me to do that. And the song, it kind of morphed from one thing into another. So I wrote the song initially, started it with like no lyrics, and it was just the instrumentation. And then I went through an experience in second year.
Do you want to talk about the experience, or was it?
To touch on it briefly, it was just a very like classically queer scenario that happened, and that's where I'll leave it at. And after that, the first and second verse came out as like me singing about that experience, and it really covered like this like yearning and like trying to get someone to like see your value kind of thing. And then I kind of got stuck halfway through the song when I was writing the lyrics, and then after a little while realized that the stuff that was coming out was less about the individual experience and more about the classic feeling of like yearning for something more in life. And that's kind of what the third and fourth verse are about.
I actually watched a performance, and there was like a bit where like I felt like you were sort of like what's the word, like it was sort of like someone on a pedestal. There was sort of like a whole, like, was that right? Am I describing it right?
Yeah, it was essentially, I think, the lyrics in like the third and fourth verse, and I think the way that I connected to that and like channeled that in that performance, I was like pleading to something higher than me, and I don't think it was necessarily a singular person, more so just like, I think it was a mixture of like surrendering myself to something that I couldn't really explain. Yeah.
I feel like it was a really intense moment, like there's this moment where she just looked at the camera, and it was just her just staring straight at the camera.
I was just serving.
It was really intense. But the black, like, explain a bit about the black idea.
Honestly, the idea came from me kind of fleshing out my body of work that I've got to release this year, which hopefully I will release. It's an EP. You know how it is. It's an EP called Van to Black, and the stuff that I was writing in there, and kind of especially that song specifically, I kept having this image of like observing this like black mass that was just like existing, and it was like kind of sitting in this like ether style space, and I was witnessing this something existing in front of me, and it looked, or in my mind's eye, it looks kind of like this really mystical, like kind of like, you know, when people do those like powdery paint, really cringe, like Tumblr 2012 things, and they have like the paint, like yeah, you know what I mean? Where it's like she believed, and it's like he lied in the brackets, like that kind of stuff, like that, like the paint. It kind of like in my mind's eye looks like that, but like really stark, dark black paint, and I kept having the idea of like. It came from myself, and I was drawing out of that experience. And the fingers kind of came from this imagery of like me reaching out to touch it, to access like what I wanted to pull out, to write about, and kind of like being stained by like touching that darkness. Yeah.
So
not in like a sad, like, oh, I've been burned way, just in like a, this is what happens when you have these experiences.
Like a foreign thing, like kind of like a vibe. Like,
kind of foreign, but also just like the honest truth of like there are harsh experiences that I've lived through, and like the honesty of like just having that on display is like I think where it's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this EP like an attempt or a way to try and express that? What that black matter is,
Yeah.
Put it into like something more concrete.
Yeah, kind of in a way. It was like taking the idea of this like kind of, when I say dark, I don't mean like depressed. I mean like unknown, more so in the kind of dark stuff.
I feel like it really shows in like your performances as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like depressy. Like it's sort of
Like ethereal, mystical is what I'm aiming for.
Like is that what is
Synths, yeah.
And everything. Like it
Yeah.
really describes like what was going on in the performance.
That's what I'm trying to capture in that EP. Yeah.
The synths are very dreamy.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was just wondering because you were talking about like the black stuff. I know you had a previous EP or
No, yeah.
it's
I would.
Exotic Matter.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Is there a
That?
connection there?
Not really. Exotic Matter was like the first body of work that I released in 2021.
Yes.
I love how you're confirming that. You're like, yes, you did that then. Yeah, that was like the amalgamation of COVID and the skills that I learnt in my diploma through 2020, because that's what I did prior to coming to Monash. And that was more like a really flowy, dreamy, like romancy, like 5 tracks that I released. And I think it encapsulates like where my production skills started. So it's more basic than what I've obviously done now.
Yeah. So you would say like you've grown a lot throughout your obviously
Yeah.
time, but like
I think I found more of the sound that I'm trying to encapsulate, and like I think the artists that I draw inspiration from have also like shifted in that time. Like I still have like the main ones that I listen to obviously, and then I have ones now which I see more of myself in, which is nice. Yeah.
So which artists do you draw inspiration from?
Yeah.
What elements do you think you're trying to emulate from them?
That's a good question. I, like every moody emo girl, grew up, yeah, I was one of those people on Tumblr in 2014 being like, I'm so dark. The main artist that I listened to in high school, and this was like before I was writing music, I didn't start writing until I was like 17 or 18.
oh, that's
Yeah, because I just didn't know how to get it out, in all honesty. But the main one was The Weeknd, which is like his early, like more so of his early stuff. So like Trilogy, House of Balloons style. I listened to a lot of 070 Shake, as well as Banks. And there was an artist that I was listening to today, which I've actually just forgotten, which I was like, London Grammar. Do you remember the song Hey Now? Yeah, that kind of style. Really synth-based. I really enjoy like atmospheric music and like using spatial placement of instruments as like a mixing and production tool to kind of create like a space to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering, like you mentioned just now that like you started when you were 17, 18, which is like I feel like for a lot of people who are like musically inclined, they usually start like way
Earlier.
as well.
Yeah.
Did you play an instrument or like do you want to talk about like how you got into like music and
Yeah.
how it all like
Sure.
yeah,
In terms of how I got into it, I feel like it was just kind of like there. Like I feel like the musical or the love for music and the interest in music, I feel like predated my like existence. Like I don't remember ever being alive without having this like intense, almost like suffocating like love for music and I guess listening to music too. I've been singing since I was quite little, so like year 4 or 5, and then throughout junior school I was like privileged enough to have a crack at piano and guitar and the trumpet, which the trumpet just like fell off. My mum hated me. But piano stuck. And then I kind of recently, in like the last like year, have picked up bass and play like the tiniest bit of drums. I'm not a drummer, but I can move around a kit. And I wasn't allowed to actually do music in high school. I kind of copped the, you need to do like better ATAR subjects. And I was living in WA, so do you call that the same thing here?
Yeah,
you call it ATAR, yeah. So in high school, I actually didn't really do much music apart from just consuming it. Still singing, and I was paying for my own singing lessons too. Yeah.
that's great.
And then it came like the wave of like rejection when it got to like, I left high school and initially was offered an early entry into a Bachelor of Science and just took it because I didn't ever think to stop and like have a really hard think about what I actually cared about. I was just like, oh, this seems safe, I'll do that. And then I suddenly developed consciousness and realized that I had autonomy and was like, this shit sucks. And then I left. And then I was still singing, and then kind of in that period, so I graduated high school in 2016. So 2017, towards the end of it, I was like, okay, I want to take some more time to do that. So then I started to play the piano more and kind of did my own like education at home, teaching myself about like basic chords and music theory knowledge, and kind of had a little bit of it from before in like junior school, but obviously I had like nothing of the sort that I would have needed to like write music, which probably is why it took me a little bit longer to get to it. And then I started to write, and like the things that I was writing, if I could look back now, I would just like it was so bad. Like you have to suck. Like you actually have to. It's kind of like a rite of passage in my belief. Like I just don't believe people are like, yeah, I just banged out this one and it's now on Triple J, and I'm like, no, you didn't. Like you sat in your room and you had some fugly little notebook with like a princess on it, and you were like, he wants to wear my wig, blah, blah, blah. Like whatever the fuck, you know, like whatever, like whatever. I don't know why specifically that, but like, no, yeah, like please, like come on. Also, like like you know, you have a specific vocabulary at like 15, 16 for writing that. You can't write. At least what I enjoyed listening to, I couldn't write because I didn't have that yet, like internally. Yeah. And then I auditioned for WAPO in WA, which is like a performing arts school, got rejected. And then at the end of that year, one of my friends, Tom, from school, who I actually didn't connect with in high school, and connected with him after, he is a really awesome musician and like fantastic producer and songwriter. And I shot him a message on Instagram actually in response to a video that he posted of just like Super 8 footage that he had filmed, I think, on a trip away. Yeah. And I said to him like, oh, you know, I know you have your music stuff, but this is also really cool. Like, I really like it. I hope you keep making more stuff. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, you sing, right? Because I sang at my graduation ceremony in high school. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And then, I love that. Like, yeah. And then I ended up singing on a track with him that he wrote, and I just did my vocals on that. And then I like how I actually just like shat on someone being like, yeah, I just got on the radio, but my story actually is I sang his song and it did actually get on the radio, like straight off the bat. So the first thing I ever recorded was on rotation on RTRFM in Perth, which was cool.
That's pretty
And then
cool.
it was really cool.
That's
I like
really
how that was
cool.
me like criticizing obviously my own experience, but whatever.
I'm actually gonna look here. I was just, that's a pretty cool experience. Actually.
And then I started writing after that, and then I didn't like anything that I wrote, and then I got to 2020, like moved back to Melbourne at the start of 2020, right before COVID, and then released a song then in 2020, and that was kind of the start of it. And like, I don't really remember what else I wrote around that stuff, but it started to come out at that time. Yeah. And then that's kind of like where I got to, and I started producing then, and met a few other musicians through that course too, who I'm still really good friends with, and then it just kind of like kept going. Yeah.
I know you said like before this that like you've grown a lot, like obviously since your first EP in your diploma to like currently where you're at right now.
Yeah.
I was wondering like what did like Monash do, or like how did like your classmates like inspire you, or anything that sort of like made you a better artist and sort of like got you to hone into your craft? Like how did that process work?
That's a great question. I think going into first year, we kind of had a really interesting start because I think we started online in lockdown.
Yes.
And then we came back for like a week or two, and then we went back into lockdown. So the first year, I think kind of I discounted that time.
How did you even do like, sorry, how did you do like online like music learning? That's really that's really I was also teaching primary school kids piano like on Zoom in that time. Like literally, you don't even understand. Like they're so cute. They're so cute. Like some of the students that I had, I adored so much. But trying to do it on Zoom when they all like can't pay attention, they can't see my hand, so they can't mimic. They can't really hear because it's like cutting in and out, and I'm trying to hear them playing, and then I have like their parents yelling in the background and the other kid like smacking and I'm literally like, oh my God, like it was hard. But in terms of online for us, I think like most of it was fine because I was like privileged enough to be set up with a lot of the like technology prior to lockdown. So I have like gear at home that I can use to record and use to do all of the tasks that we needed to do. Whereas I think if you didn't have that, it would have been a lot more tricky. The hardest part about the lockdown thing was just like the singing lessons. Like you just kind of lose the like personable touch of the time that you get with your teacher, I think. So doing it online too, if it like cuts out, they're like, do it again, and you're like, okay. And you start in groups. So you're in groups of 4. So if you're like stuffing it up and you're like having a hard time, it's just like embarrassing because it's like there's 3 other people watching you trying to attempt something. But I think at the time it feels really horrific, especially in first year when you like don't know people and there's no kind of like, dare I say, like hierarchy like established in terms of like who's doing what. You kind of are like in this space where I feel like, like it kind of feels like you are slightly trying to prove that you're good a little bit to other people. So yeah, that was really that. And
but
because music's like a really subjective thing. Competitions like in some way because there's no objective measure.
And there's so much variety. So it's like, like I think there's not really anyone that can sit in that space and be like, oh, this is good and this is not, because it's like, wait, you're not even qualified enough to say that. And like, who are you to judge like what you don't listen to? Like, what would you know? You know what I mean? What was the initial question you asked me? I've forgotten now. You said something about learning.
How you transition from your diploma.
Like the growth process. What Monash did. Shout out Rod Davies, Jared Marco, Monash University Clayton. A lot of things.
You would hope so.
Me too, considering I was paying for it. I think the main thing for me, and like what I sometimes still struggle with, is like a bit of performance anxiety. So having the space and the challenge in that degree to get up and perform and be really vulnerable and really honest and try new things and, you know, kind of workshop your own stage presence was really beneficial for me personally. There are some people who I know who like are in the course that I did and, you know, have been gigging since they were like 16, 17. So they've got all the performance stuff down, but they may lack, you know, conviction or confidence in other areas. So for me, it was that. The connections, obviously. I've made some really like brilliant, fantastic, beautiful, kind friends through that course who are a part of my project now and are my band members. Shout out to Otto and Finnan and Isla and Liv and Tia and a whole bunch of other people. Yeah, like the access to musos that can help you to actually conceptualize and expand your own art was like a massive plus, obviously. And I was kind of having this conversation recently with someone, like if someone wants to get into music like I did and you don't have immediate connections, like going to a music school is definitely like the thing to do to like make those connections, because otherwise I think it can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, like a bit hard to like break into the industry.
Yeah, and just like
this industry is kind of small, like really, no, or
I wouldn't say that it's small. I'd say that like the circles sometimes run tight.
Okay.
So if you know someone, and like better yet, if you can make a friend and have a connection with someone and have, you know, a good time and a real human experience with someone, then like you're so much more likely to keep expanding on that than just like being on the outside and having it as like just a professional relationship. But yeah, so the performance thing, the connection thing, I did a unit in second year, which was a production unit, which a woman called Iran, I think she's female, she might be non-binary, I'm not too sure, I might have to check that. Sorry, Iran. I think she might be she, they. Anyway, Iran took this unit, or ran the unit, and it was just like mind-boggling when it came to like synthesizers and playing around with synthesis and like analog and FM, and it was just like so much knowledge. And I think it allowed me to expand on like the foundational skills that I developed in my diploma into more niche and like more like poignantly executed like
so
techniques.
just drawn into the emotion.
Yeah, and like even like the technical aspects of production. Like the lady who taught me at during my diploma was named Tamara, and she was awesome. She's also a film composer, and she just gave me all of the really basic skills of production, which is what I used really to make the EP that I put out. And then, yeah, I guess Iran and especially Hayden, who's the sound engineer in there with us in the studio, he's like, I was really lucky to be taken under his wing, and like he really took the time to teach me, and like I would always be prodding and pushing, and I would be in the studio up there with him like every second chance that I got. I would just email him and be like, can I just come and sit in and like listen to what you're saying? And like it's not even like I would come in and like on my days off and be like, I want to be here, like you know, teach me something, and he would. And it was funny, the relationship developed from like a really weird point. Like the first time I met him in second year? Yeah, it must have been. You do an ensemble unit where you record pieces in the studio in Monash, and it's really, really fun. But he walked into the room the first time that I met him, and there was a power plug like in the corner, and Rod, our course convener, who's so professional, like he's amazing, was sitting in the room with us, and Hayden kind of like went to put something in next to me, and like without thinking I just went, that's an ass in my face. And like Rod looked at me and he was like, let's try and keep things professional, and Hayden just looked back and literally was like, what the hell? And it grew yeah, no, like it grew on the humor, and like like now we were joking the other day, and he goes, I swear that you and I were like brother and sister in like a past life or something, because we just like take the piss
really
all the time. Yeah, it was good. It was good. But yeah, I think probably in those ways the most.
It feels like the you like it's a really nice like space to be in terms of like the teaching staff's really like sort of like it's more a personal like relationship.
Yeah, and he's so giving with like the information that he gives out. Like, I think a piece of advice that someone gave to me ages ago was that, you know, when it comes to pursuing the things that you want, like the classic, like, don't be afraid to ask. And then this person kind of tail-ended that with like, some people will say no to you because they don't have the time, but trust in the fact that there are people out there who like will want to help you just because they want to. It's not going to be like an exchange of like tit for tat. It's like someone who's genuine in the industry, who will care about you as a human being, care about the things that you care about, and will like help to nourish that space for you. And I think that's kind of like what Hayden grew to be, which is really cool.
That's really
it's special. Yeah.
Kind of at a pause here.
Breath.
I find that really cool.
Yeah, no, like
that's something like that.
Because like I feel like a lot of other courses at Monash, it's like the bigger like music,
Yeah.
really small cohort, and everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't think I've ever had a class where I've spoken to my uni teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister says the same thing to me. So she moved back to Melbourne last year. And, you know, with the music degree, we are all seeing each other like every week, working together, like professional, social, sometimes intimate. Like it's like across the it's like it's across the whole thing. And like, you know, my sister was like, she goes, it's like incest. Like you guys like just don't live. Like she was. It would be. Yeah, like it's like, she was like to me, like you guys are just like on each other's backs all the time. And I was like, yeah, but like I don't get it. And because that's been my uni experience, she was like, it's not like that in the real world. And I was like, the real world? Like what? I was like, I'll stay in this one if that's how it is. But yeah, it is. It's really closely knit. Yeah.
Do you, like, I lost my question.
Take a pause.
Let's take a pause. But I actually was really interested in this question because I heard like multiple pieces of what you said just now. Like you started writing, but then like you said that your song, the composition came first. Like, came first.
Yeah.
So like, are you like, which one do you find easier to start with in terms of like making?
Good question. I think in terms of ease and like time efficiency, if I like want to smash something out, if I'm like, okay, I want to put out a song or I want to get an idea out, I think the easiest thing for me is having the composition first and then top lining it, which is essentially like getting all of the instrumentation, listening to it, and then writing the melody and the words over the top of that, rather than having the words and melody as a starting point. I think that's where one of my strengths lies, is in the top lining of stuff. And it's more fun, I think, because like really what you're doing over the top of that is just improvising and like seeing what comes out. And the interesting part of it is when you like kind of create the space to start improvising over a track. And I don't think I necessarily try to have like a meaning behind what I'm saying. I just start singing things and see what obviously my like subconscious wants to start talking about. And there's some weird stuff in there. She's going through something. But yeah, it's probably the easier way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just kind of set the vibes with the and
then
you try to like just like let's see what comes out.
Yeah, and I think it's like, at least when I produce first, and like I won't ever like write all the chords and do all of the instrumentation and have the whole track. It'll be like looping a section. And like I think having the instrumentation first, for me at least, like creates its own little like universe of like sound and like what's existing there. And then it's my job to like enter into that space and to like just listen and like flesh it out. Yeah.
I feel like when I like listened to your performance and like even like your first EP, like
Mm.
it was sort of like it was hard to grasp the words. So it
Yeah.
was more like I was in a different like sort of world in it.
Yeah.
And it was just like sort of trying to figure out like what. Is that a. It's not yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, I get it.
And I think
Yeah.
to add to that, you also mentioned that you like to kind of play with spaces and like make it
Yes.
very different. So
Yeah.
it really does feel like you're walking into this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like. Just sort
I
of
love
these
it.
spaces.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we could like wrap up. Just to wrap up, do you have any like future collaborations coming, or like where is your like next gig gonna be at?
Yeah.
You know.
I know. I don't have a gig planned yet because I've just been on the writing grind.
Yeah.
But another artist who is performing on the show called Volcara, she's awesome. Her and I will be putting on a gig soon. We're going to plan that.
Exciting.
And hopefully Van to Black will be out, I'm hoping for July.
Okay.
Winter vibes. Yeah,
Back here.
July.
July.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really it, I think, from me. I'm just living,
Yeah.
alive.
Actually,
Breathing.
sorry. One question that I actually really meant to ask.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot. Sorry, this is actually the wrap-up
Yeah.
question. But
Yeah.
I noticed that like for By Popular Demand this season, they've got like a live audience.
Yeah.
And so you're in like a set on set with a
Yes.
live audience. Like,
Yep.
what's the difference between that and performing at a live gig? Is there
Oh.
a difference, or like is it sort of
I think the difference is,
that's the camera for you to stare at?
yeah, I think the difference for me that I experienced in terms of live gig, like when I perform live, my favorite part of that is like connecting with the people in the room, and it doesn't necessarily have to be through like talking to them like one-on-one and having that like interaction, but just being in people's energy and like creating that space of like breath and like just a kind of reprieve from whatever else is going on outside of that room is different to the kind of set vibes, because if there's a camera, I feel like although you're performing to a live audience, the aim of that realistically is to give that performance like to the camera rather than like to the people, I guess, around it, because you want it to translate, of course, on TV.
Yeah.
So you're kind of, I felt like rather than in the live setting where my energy is kind of going like dispersing across the room, I felt very intentional with like directing it at certain points and like
Right.
delivering that with like really like direct intention.
Was that your
Yeah.
first time doing it as well? Because I felt like it was you did like a really good job with the whole.
Behind the camera, yeah. Thank
It
you.
was really impressive. If you,
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at
Yeah.
it the same time actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, wrapping up, I just
Yeah.
be interested in hearing.
I can keep talking. I love talking. I'm a yapper. Yeah.
But you just talked about how your experience of connecting with the crowd and how much you enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what you enjoy more between writing and getting your emotions out in music as
Yeah.
opposed to performing it to an audience and the connection that you find there.
That's a great question. There's so much good in both of those things. And I think that my answer probably is dependent on like where I'm at in the creative process. So I think when you're in the writing phase, it's very, well, it can be, at least for me, very like isolating, not in like the negative sense, but I need to have kind of like a cocoon of space to sit in and to write and to like wallow in all of my crap, to like process it basically. Not that it has to be sad, but like I just feel like, yeah, literally, yeah, in the corner like facing the wall. Yeah, it's kind of like, it sounds so weird, but like marinating in your own like life. You know what I mean? Like you have to like be in it, and like it sounds so like you have to live the experience.
It's okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Dramatic. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of like it.
And that's really enjoyable, especially when you're like, there's honestly not many things that compare for me when you're like digging for a melodic idea or trying to find like a hook or a chorus melody, and you like somehow mine it out of your mind and it just sits well, and there's like such a feeling of satisfaction, and when it sounds right and your whole body is just like, yeah, yeah, like I'm trying to exude it so you like feel it. It's like you can sit back and just be like, oh, yeah, and that's great. And then I think the live performance, like, there is just so much fun in the connection of performing with like other musos, like, and especially when they're your friends. Like, the people in my band are all of my best friends, and having like the blessing of sharing just like a very real and like raw like human experience where like I'm bringing to the table like everything that I care about. Like, it's just like who I am as a person, and like what I've carried with me since I was a kid. Like, to bring that on the stage and to be vulnerable in that, and to like feel the fear of pursuing the thing you want with your friends around you who are like, you know, I wouldn't even say they're like behind you. They're like standing with me on this line being like, yeah, we're going to do this and this is going to be fun. And it just feels like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just care so much more about having this like raw, like natural, authentic experience of connecting with people and like everyone dropping into the same space, you know, and there's so much like real life to be experienced in that, and that's arguably maybe like marginally better than like the writing thing, because it's real, right? And it's like you're looking at, yeah, it's
contrasting. Like,
I just think, yeah, like I think my focus shifted so much like from uni, or maybe even like because of uni, to like from going from this like studious head down, like pumping out all of this stuff and gaining all of this knowledge and trying to digest it, and like getting to the end of it and being like, okay, I have all of these tools now, and like now I want to take it out there and do something with it. And I just got into this space of like, I just want to like throw myself into the deep end of like life and meet people and connect with people, and like music is probably like the best way for me to do that. So yeah, I think that might be the better, just by a bit, just by a bit. Yeah.
That's a wrap.
Yeah,
That's a good wrap.
It's really nice to hear that. Like, I just really enjoy like just the idea of shared experience and just how people perceive that, and it's just really cool to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Right, work.